Good morning. Welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder. This is BRN Weekly for Saturday, July 22nd, 2023. And our top story today, investors are left with a mixed picture about the U.S. economy. And joining me now to discuss this and a lot more, Jane King is a financial journalist joining us this morning from the NASDAQ. Jane, always great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us on the program this morning.
Yeah, great to be back, Jeffrey.
And I noticed Barbie, was Barbie in town?
Yeah, Barbie. Well, it was Mattel. It looked like executives, maybe some people that worked behind the scenes at the movie. So none of the stars here to ring the opening bell today, but a lot of pink. There's like a pink hue everywhere, and some dolls. They had some dolls sitting around. So
Very cool. I'm a big Barbie fan. I didn't collect them as a little boy, but I was always a big fan, and a big fan of Margot Robbie's, of course, and her what's the other actor's name?
Ryan Gosling,
who plays Ken, right?
Yeah.
All right, well, we were totally off tangent there, but mixed signals. I guess investors are getting mixed signals, and we've got a Fed Reserve meeting coming up next week. What's your take on the market this week?
Right. So just about everybody thinks that we will get one more interest rate hike from the Fed next week, 0.25%. We'll see. I've heard some pretty good arguments about, why don't they just wait and let these interest rate increases work their way through the economy? But the consensus is we'll get one more, and then they might be done for a while. Of course, that all depends on economic data, but that's the general feeling is what we'll see for the rest of the year.
So when you look at inflation, Jane, and consumer prices in particular, I mean, there are certain areas that where the inflation is increasing or has not come down as you would expect. I was driving out the other day over the weekend. I saw gas prices still high here in Charlotte, North Carolina. But then when I go to the grocery store, maybe some of the key foods coming down.
Yeah, they are coming down, although I did see frozen vegetables are up 18% compared to last year because there were a lot of rains in California and that hurt the vegetable supply. But I love a good bag of frozen vegetables in the crock pot, come home for dinner, so it's a one thing that's gone up. And housing is an issue. Rents are going up, home prices are near record highs, like about 1% away from the all-time high. And you need affordable housing for people. So that's potentially a political issue. So we'll see.
Yeah, and by the way, I'm a big fan of frozen vegetables too. Throw them into my smoothie. My wife does the same as well. Jane, I want to ask you just on the earnings beat, and as we said, there's some mixed signals here, but on the earnings beat, it looks like these tech companies, everyone's boosted by artificial intelligence. We talked a little about this last week. Is that still the flavor of the month, so to speak?
Well, we'll see once we start getting these tech earnings coming in. So the big story this week and late last week was the banks. And for the most part, they were pretty good. Chase beat expectations. Bank of America raised its dividend. Wells Fargo did better than expected. So the banks held in there. That was a worry, and we made it through that. So we'll see what the tech says. Although I'm hearing some more people say, and maybe we're in a bubble with AI. Everybody's excited. They feel like, and maybe potentially long-term, it's game changing. But they feel like, there's too much, too fast, too quickly with AI. And we might see some of these stocks shed some of these gains.
We were just talking several months ago about Chat GPT. This is really, which I kind of, I guess it's machine learning, but I kind of pull it all together. I mean, it's the same thoughts, I guess, in terms of AI, and this AI thing is like totally pushed that off the radar screen.
Yeah, I mean, I think the machine learning is kind of more gather data, learn from the data. It's like numbers and data, whereas the Chat GPT is more generative. Like it actually generates content, stories, and like breakup letters with somebody if you don't know how to write one, and it can do it in a nice way and in about 6 seconds. So that's what's so kind of weird about the Chat GPT and the generative AI is how human it behaves and sounds.
Yeah, and there are kids actually using it to write some term papers. I know we've actually covered some stories where colleges and universities have put it into place how you can and can't use AI. I guess you can use it for learning, but you can't use it to write papers. Jane, always great to see you. And by the way, we're going to have to do a segment. You mentioned the crock pot and cooking. We're going to have to do a Jane King live from the kitchen interview, and we'll get you to do
Yes.
some of Jane's favorite recipes in 15 minutes or less. Jane, great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us, and we look forward to having you back on the program again very soon.
Thanks. See you soon.
Thanks, Jane. Great to see you as always. Thanks for sharing your perspective. And when we come back, we'll take a look at some of our best segments for the week. You're going to want to stay tuned right here on BRN Weekly. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms, especially for the smaller businesses? I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network.
Are you stuck with a low credit score? A credit report and score that's causing you to be denied credit or pay higher interest rates than others for the same things? Then do what Terrence did and call Credit Repaired for your free credit evaluation to help restore your credit.
I started thinking about buying a new house, and my score wasn't where I needed it to be. I called and spoke with one of the representatives, and we just had a good conversation, and I liked what he was saying.
Just one call for his free credit evaluation was all it took to start back on the track to repairing his credit.
I'm seeing the deletions and I'm getting the report, so I know something's being done. It does make a difference to me.
All it takes is one call to get started.
Credit Repair has given me a second chance to have a better credit score.
Don't let a low credit score hold you back another day. Do what Terrence did and make the call for your free credit evaluation.
Call 800-819-4152. That's 800-819-4152. Again, 800-819-4152.
Welcome back. Well, we had a great week of shows with great contributors. We kicked off the week with a look at a breakthrough in autism research. Let's take a look.
Yeah, so actually the paper that we were working on this for the last 4 years, but actually the idea, was born almost a decade ago, like nine or 10 years ago, made a lot of extraordinary press all over the world because of the importance of identifying novel mechanisms in autism. So we are very aware, and the scientific community is very aware of the fact that only a few molecular mechanisms are known in autism. And my lab and I are very proud to be one of the groups in the world to discover a real novel mechanism. Indeed, the number that you indicated in the United States are 1 to 36. In Europe is almost 1 to 65. In Israel, almost 1 to 85. And worldwide, it's 1 to 100. We are talking about a very common disorder that we need to understand why it's happening. This study and the idea started back when I was a postdoc at MIT in Boston. And I was a postdoc at the lab of Professor Stephen Tenenbaum, who was one of the co-discoverer that nitric oxide is produced in our cells, in our human cells. And there at MIT, we discovered that there are specific proteins that are modified by nitric oxide in autism. So from the day one that I started my position as a professor at the Hebrew University, Faculty of Medicine, we started to look whether nitric oxide is elevated in clinical blood samples from kids of low functioning autism. We looked for nitric oxide in stem cells of autistic kids, and we also looked for nitric oxide in brain tissues of mouse models of autism that have a specific mutations that are correlated with autism. In all of these, we found increase of nitric oxide. And then we were motivated to start developing a drug to reduce the nitric oxide in the brain and see whether the behavioral deficits are reversed or not. And happily, we, in this work that was published in Advanced Science a month ago, we discovered that when you reduce nitric oxide in the brain, the autistic features are autistic-like features in mouse models are reduced. So we're talking about social deficits, anxiety-like behavior, novelty seeking, repetitive behavior, and other features. I just want to add a little bit of what you said. The scientific community and the medical community are very aware of the genetic background of autism. We know that hundreds of mutations now associated with autism, but the additive value that my lab and our work is adding is that we are looking on the molecular and the biochemical changes in the brain, and we are think as pharmacologists in order to know how we can alter these biochemical changes by pharmacology and by small molecules and drugs.
And finally, we discussed how state and local governments are working hard to attract and retain public employees. Let's take a look.
The private sector is largely, I'd say, recovered from the downturn with the pandemic, but state and local governments are still lagging behind where they were in early 2020. And there has been good news. I mean, they have been hiring. It's just that, with the other trends going on in the workforce, particularly retirements or resignations, they just haven't quite met that level that they were at before COVID-19 hit. Yeah, both full-time and part-time hiring has improved. So I'd say they're hiring both, and they are hiring, in whatever ways they can, whether that's, through traditional means or, as you say, more, creative means such as hiring gig workers. Again, I think the challenge is the overall hiring landscape has changed, and the number of candidates they're getting for these jobs has changed as well. We started this survey back in about 2009, working with not only the Research Institute, but the Public Sector Human Resources Association and the National Association for State Personnel Executives. And what we saw in the aftermath of the Great Recession was that there were a higher number of retirement-ready individuals who were postponing their retirement plans. A very small percentage who were saying that those plans were being accelerated. That really flipped in 2021, where we saw a lot more people accelerating their plans for health reasons, for economic reasons, whatever the case might have been. But the trends have really continued, not quite as much as the spike in 2021, but even now, looking at both resignations and retirements, the percentage that are saying that it's increased since last year is 3 to 4 times what is the percentage who are saying that those resignations and retirements have decreased. Overall, the people in our survey were saying no, they are not. Only 30% feel that their employees are financially prepared for retirement. That's not to say that it's strictly those at retirement age. Many of those who are unprepared are those who are younger employees who might not have started saving the way they should. But another big part of that is financial understanding, frankly. Knowing what they need to do to prepare for retirement and taking the steps necessary. So one of the strategies that a lot of governments are taking is to provide that type of financial wellness education so that those employees understand, for instance, the impacts of inflation how that may color their ideas of what they need to do personally to prepare for retirement, or even for other eventualities like emergency savings, or how they deal with debt. All of that goes into not only their personal financial security, but also their satisfaction and willingness to stay in the job that they are in. There are about 17 different occupations that came up as hard to fill in the most recent survey, and most of those have been increasing in that difficulty over the past not 2 or 3 years, but I'd say 10 years. And that's, yes, police and corrections in particular, but also things like nursing, IT, engineering, and even positions like maintenance work or positions that require a commercial driver's license. Very often the positions that are in direct competition with the private sector. Residents who are looking for services, whether that's something as simple as, let's say, a building permit, depend upon building inspectors and others who are available to provide the work that needs to be done. And again, there's direct competition with the private sector for people who might be skilled in, let's say, individual trades, where they can either work in the construction side of the equation or they can work in the permitting side of it. And if they end up choosing the private sector, it might be a longer wait for the work that you need to be done on the permitting inspection side.
And that wraps up this episode of BRN Weekly. Have a topic of interest, someone you think we should talk to, drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the latest charity news and lifestyle, wellness, finance, tech, so much more, and all in one place, check out today's edition of our daily newsletter, The Morning Pulse. Want to search our archives, check out our latest content, visit our website, and of course, all of our streaming partners. We're back again tomorrow for another edition of BRN Sunday. I'll be joined by members of the media, academia, financial services, and government as we break out all the news and important events for the week. You're not going to want to miss it. Until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes. Now is your opportunity to co-create content around any topic on the first lifestyle and wellness network. Reach a global audience through our platform and co-own exclusive branded content. All of our programs are available on demand and also as audio-only podcasts, so you can take us on the go. Broadcast Retirement Network, available anytime, anywhere, and on any device.
Tax audits, tax liens, wage garnishments.
Every day we hear stories like this about good folks who are simply struggling to pay their bills. Each of them are living a frightening IRS tax nightmare, and they are afraid it will destroy their lives.
I'm a divorced single mom, and my ex-husband left me and the kids with a lot of unpaid bills, including unpaid taxes. I was really starting to show my stress on my kids because the IRS had sent me a letter demanding a huge payment from me. I couldn't afford it. So then the IRS was threatening to garnish my wages. I'm already living paycheck to paycheck. That would have put me over the edge financially.
It truly seemed hopeless, but then a friend at work told her to call the tax relief line.
The people at the tax relief line, they told me about something called innocent spouse relief. They worked it out so that all of the taxes from my ex are not my problem. I don't know how that works, and I don't care. All I care about is that I don't owe the IRS a dime, and they are not going to take my paycheck.
Even if it seems hopeless, you should call the number on your screen right now. There is absolutely no cost for the call or the consultation. You are under no obligation. If you are worried that the IRS could garnish your wages, seize your assets, even take your home, call us right now. The Tax Relief Line is here to help you. Now you have a knowledgeable, professional team of tax experts that are ready to negotiate with the IRS and fight for you to save you money. The Tax Relief Line's professionals have successfully negotiated thousands of cases, reducing and sometimes even eliminating the tax debt for their clients. It's very easy to get started. Simply call the number on your screen right now. You don't have to live in fear anymore. The call and the consultation are free.